Now, the brand positioning statement, in a nutshell, establishes what you stand for and how you're going to compete in the market. Marketing is all about perception. People think one thing of us right now, and we want them to think something else. That's what marketing does. I just want them to know that I exist. I want them to know what I can do for them. That's where it's all about. The second thing is it identifies the way you want consumers to think about you in the context of other similar offerings. Now, one of the people watching today, I know, for example, is a life coach. She's not the only life coach in the country. And I'll use the name, Aviva would like people to understand how she stands out and competes against other people with a similar offering, or how does she make her offering look exceptional against that? And then also it creates an enduring, sustainable competitive advantage based on perceived quality. Everything about a brand positioning statement is written from the point of view of the customer. It's how they perceive the quality they're receiving. It's how they perceive the service they're getting. It's how they perceive you. And then finally, strategies and tactics to market must be consistent with this positioning. Once you've written your brand positioning statement, it is really important that you refer to it often. And each time a new challenge comes along, a new opportunity, just go back to that statement and say, is this opportunity in line with what I should be doing right now? Now, desperate times call for desperate measures. So we tend to do things that maybe we shouldn't. We do them at prices that we shouldn't. We're all making that mistake. You're not alone in that. But if you make that consideration, you decide once you've looked at your brand positioning statement. And a small example is a restaurant group in South Africa, and I won't mention their name. I wrote their brand positioning statement for them about 10 years ago. And when we were deciding on their target market, we identified their target market quite simply as a sophisticated urbanite. That was it. They needed a certain level of sophistication to understand the menu, and they needed to live in an urban area so they could understand the hustle and bustle of the restaurant. And then they came along to me and they said to me they were opening a branch in a particular area. And I said to them, how many sophisticated urbanites live in that area? And they said to me, don't worry, we'll teach them. And I said, no, they're going to teach you. And unfortunately, they did. They lost that particular business. And so all I'm saying is keep going back to this all the time. So let's get you all working right now. What you can do right now, if you like, is grab a pen and paper, have something there, your iPad, something to type on, because I'm going to try and challenge you as we go along and help you write this brand positioning statement for you. The first thing to understand is that there really are only 4 steps to the brand positioning statement. The very first one is 2. Who is your target market? Now, I have sat with countless entrepreneurs and I turned around to them and I said to them, who's your target market? And the answer is always the same. They say to me, everybody. Then I say, well, don't you at least mean everybody with money? Oh yeah, yes, that. And don't you at least mean everyone with money and access to the internet? So I mean, you're doing an online store. Oh yes, that as well. And don't you mean everyone within an area that you can deliver to? And so you start breaking it down until you have established exactly who your perfect target market is. Now, I want you to imagine that you could draw a picture of your ideal customer. Male, this age, lives here, does this, has so many children. Then you could take that and run it into a photocopy machine and run off 40 or 50 or 100 copies. You would become wealthy almost overnight. And that's why this first step of understanding who I'm talking to is so important. Now, just before we get away from everything, please understand that you might be talking to different people at different times. And therefore, your message will vary from person to person. So, for example, let's say I give extra lessons. Now, when I sell the idea of extra lessons, I'm probably going to sell it to the mom. When I sell the idea of someone having to pay for it, it might be either the mom or maybe the dad, the one who makes the final decision on the money, although very often it's the mom. But then I have to sell the idea of that I'm a good deliverer of the lessons to the child. So there are different kind of messages within your market, but your target market will remain the same. The second thing is understanding what it is that they are looking for. And this is where so many people get caught up. They just don't understand that what it is that they want to deliver, there is actually no market for it. And I'll talk about that just a little bit later on. So please try and work out and try and formulate in your mind, what are these people seeking from you? What solution do you have? Now, I'm a child of the 60s, so I grew up with some very strange expressions that my father used to make, which I'm pretty sure millennials wouldn't even understand right now. And he always used to say to me, if you can build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. In other words, there's a problem out there that someone's having. And if you can solve that problem, if you can offer them some kind of solution, that's it. You'll be invited in open arms, and there's no amount of money that people will not pay for a solution that saves them time, saves them money, helps them earn things. So there again, there's your seeking. Then we finally come to what you actually do. And this is what I offer. Now, even when I talk to my customers and they explain to me what they offer, because a lot of them are industry specific, they tend to use terms that nobody else will use. And I'm going to, with a little bit of tongue in cheek, I'm going to talk about, for example, life coaches. Now, one of the most prolific expressions that I ever hear when I'm talking to a life coach is they tell me, I want to hold space for you, or I want you to hold space. Now, as a layman out there, I'm not even sure what that means. And I kind of nod because I don't want to appear stupid, but I've actually got no understanding of what that means. Or, for example, people that use TLAs. I completely hate TLAs, and TLAs are 3-letter acronyms. There's nothing worse than sitting in front of somebody and they're saying, oh, you need to take your VBM and connect it to your USB and connect it to this. And I'm sitting there going, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. So even when you tell people what you're offering, we really want to tell them in light of what they will understand and the problem that they have and who they are and their level of sophistication and understanding. So the last thing we want to do is make our customers feel stupid about themselves. So even when we do our offer, remember, our offer is to them. It's not as simple as that. And then finally, we need to give them a reason to believe. Now that I've done all of this, and the reason to believe is kind of up there with your about section of your web page. It's when you give credence to something. Now, I have a simple little trick. Every single time I'm talking to somebody within the restaurant industry, somewhere along the way, I'll throw in one simple line. I'll say to them, yes, I was the marketing manager for Mug and Bean. I joined them when they had about 8 shops, and we sold them, and the business was sold, and I left when they had about 95 shops. And along the way, I happened to help them win Brand Builder of the Year. Now, that's more than enough for anyone within the restaurant industry to understand that I clearly have a grasp of what's happening within the restaurant and franchising industry. So it's that kind of statement. There's something about what you're offering. Why should they believe you? What experience do you have? What do you bring to the table? Do you have a qualification that other people offering a similar service don't have? So that would give you that would give you a pretty good idea of what that is. So grab your pen and paper. Now we're actually going to start that exercise. And I'm going to tell you how to write each one of these things. First thing, when you're writing the two, I want you to imagine the potential user, the purchase of your brand, your product, your service. On that piece of paper, write down anything. Don't try and write your word positioning statement in a single sentence. If you end up with a whole page of stuff, that's great. If you end up with only one line because you already know exactly who your target market is, that's also fine. There's no right or wrong answer here at all. The next thing is, think to yourself, when I'm describing my target market, does this description provide a clear picture of my user? If I were to say this thing, would I in my mind be able to envisage who that person is? And the third thing to ask yourself is, are the needs of this group that are currently not being met? In other words, is there a market for what it is that I'm actually offering? Now, going back to those talks that I used to do at Nedbank, one of the other things that I would do is we would talk one day at, for example, at Sandton, and the next day would be in Tembisa, or we'd be in Cape Town, there would be in Khayelitsha. And when I arrived in Tembisa one day, I turned around to the audience as I started, and I kind of whispered and I said, wow, guys, I saw a fantastic business opportunity on my way into the auditorium this morning. Who'd like to hear it? And of course, being entrepreneurs, everybody ears picked up and they say, yes, I'd love to. And I said, you know that one of the things I noticed, that there's nobody selling swimming pool equipment and swimming pool chemicals in Tembisa. And of course, the crowd started laughing at me. And then I turned to them and I say, why? They said, because people don't have swimming pools in Tembisa. And I go, oh, well, it would have really helped if I had a little local knowledge. So please understand that even if you have this brilliant business idea, there does need to be a market for it. And that's why understanding who your customer is so important. And then, is it obvious to you why this user will be interested in your brand? Can you understand the difference between, or not, sorry, the connection between the user and your brand? Is there a connection, or are we starting from scratch and trying to create something new? So if you could simply start writing your brand positioning statement using those 4 questions will help you tremendously. So what I want to do is, before I move on to seeking, I'm going to open it up to anyone. You're welcome to unmute yourself and have a go at who you believe your target market is and how clear you are in your own mind of who that market is.
You are welcome to share in the Zoom chat, or if anybody would like to come in and share the results from this specific activity with everybody and get some feedback from Mike, you're more than welcome to do so. We have a few minutes for that. While people are thinking, Mike, we have Alistair, who shared earlier on that what he has done as a very valuable exercise before is to explain his value proposition to 10 and 12-year-olds and ask them what they think. And he felt their feedback to be very enlightening and revealing, and it helped him to remove some jargon and complexity and acronyms. So yeah, what's your opinion on that while we wait for somebody to maybe come on stage and share some feedback on this activity?
Alistair, I absolutely love your idea. I would even go as far as to say, if you don't have any 10 or 12-year-olds around, try any teenager. First of all, if you can get them to put down their phone for 2 seconds, you've already at least speaking to them a language that they want. And also, what you can do for yourselves is you can ask yourself the question, why, 3 times. So why did you choose this? Why? Because the first time you ask someone the question why, they can answer you pretty quickly. The second time there's with some hesitation. And the third time you really see them fumbling for an answer. So that's another way to kind of do it, is to ask yourself, why did I choose this person? Why do I think this person fits into the thing? And why do I believe they are my target market? And if you can answer those, you're pretty close as well.
And Lloyd then adds to that, say that you can make honesty that children process as a very grounding effort as well. Anybody who would like to come in and share some feedback on this activity? Don't be shy, we are learning from each other.
I'll go for it.
Thanks, Jean-Pierre.
Okay, so I'm trying to build this platform, and I've basically identified 3 types of customer segments, and the challenge is everyone tells me to focus on either of them, but it's kind of I feel at least I can't do one without the other, because it is kind of connecting 3 different segments in one platform. So I have to focus on all 3 of them. So it's best described as at the moment a virtual incubator, and I'm really struggling to get to explain it every time what it is, but let's stick to a virtual incubator for the moment. And the 3 segments are ventures, which are entrepreneurs or small businesses, any project or initiative or intervention or so, even apps, I believe. And then guides, which are subject matter experts, consultants, people with know-how and IP. And the idea is to digitize their IP and offer it to the entrepreneur. And then ecosystems is basically a broader ecosystem that needs to manage both entrepreneurs, initiatives, interventions, etc., and connect them with their subject matter experts. And it's then thus managing those 2 within a greater space or environment.
So my question then to you, Jean-Pierre, would be, can you identify one that you'd need, who needs to come first? So for example, I'm opening a restaurant. In order to have a restaurant, I need to have staff, I need to have suppliers, and I do need to have customers. But until I've got the staff and the suppliers in place, there is nothing for me to offer the customers. So can you look at your little triangle and say, is there, even if it's just like fractionally, is there fractionally an order that I need to have these people and talk to them? And that's how I would do it. I'd say,
Yeah.
If your answer to that is no, the pin lands right in the middle, then yes, you're going to have to write 3 brand positioning statements and offer 3 different things to them at the same time.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. So what I've done is I have ordered them, and they are relative to all sorts of other things. What's going to generate the quickest cash flow? What's the entrepreneurs, startups, they don't have money. But your ecosystems or your consultants might have, and when I say ecosystems, I talk about consulting houses. So it's all relative to where the product's at, relative to what can bring in can secure the best positive cash flow as soon as possible. And then with a kind of go-to-market strategy where you kind of stagger it from there. And then I think what I've put last onto the list is the actual entrepreneur, because to get mass market reach, it's going to take a really polished product that's super slick, that's going to be able to scale and being offered at a really low, if not free price. So that's roughly where I'm at the moment.
John Bear, I would say you've answered your own question almost in a nutshell. So you certainly have got 3 markets, and I would right now, I would write a brand positioning statement to each one of them. But then when I went to market, I would go in the order that you've posted to me right now. Thank you very much.
So what I'm hearing you saying is, Mike, that you don't have one brand positioning statement. You have a unique brand positioning statement for each separately. We've got Harris. I cannot encrypt your message there. There's a lot of acronyms there. Would you mind coming onto stage and clarifying your comment in the chat, please? Guy, Harris?
You mean decrypt, Liezel?
Decrypt. Just these apologies in advance, people. I'm on drugs, good drugs, so I might call you different names as well today. Thanks, Guy. Over to you.
Thanks. There are a lot of names you could have called me, Liezel. Just very quickly, my TLA's 3-letter acronyms are my oxygen. So tongue-in-cheek, I just said, if what I always say to people, what's an FLA? And if they respond 4-letter acronym, I say no, 5, and vice versa. Sorry about my obtuse.
No, thank you very much, Guy. I'm going to remember that one and quote you on it.
Please just ask that if you are not talking that you mute. Thanks. Anybody else? We've got a minute for this one, please. Anybody else would like to come on?
There's a few comments in the chat.
Yes, I see that. Some of them are very, very long. My label. I think Carmen, maybe you would like to come on. Comment out.
Putting me on the spot there, Liezel.
Indeed, I am.
So yeah, just a recent conversation with Liezel, we were talking about the difficulty, and Mike, you alluded to it earlier, being in the coaching and training realm. Liezel told me to please immediately do away with the word saturated market. I think it's quite difficult to craft the message of what you're trying to solve. So answering that so what question. And specifically referring to what you were talking about earlier on, where terminology gets used like the word transformation. What does that mean in layman's terms? So I think that's the difficulty in terms of positioning yourself in a very active market and knowing exactly who are you going to serve and what do you have to offer. I think sometimes it feels like you have an incredible amount of value, but you don't really know how to package that correctly. I don't know if that answers the input, Liezel, in terms of just where my headspace is at.
Carmen, I think what's happening is that we all believe we have value. In fact, most of us we're sitting here because we believe we have value, and we're struggling to get that value across to our customer. And it's often because we have our own inability to put ourselves in the mind of the customer. And I think, I'm not sure whether I should take it as a compliment or an insult, but Lloyd has certainly helped me understand that I am basically a 12-year-old. Because I can sit there and listen to someone and go, but what do you mean? No, that's not good enough. Cut out that word. And you need someone to do that for you. You need someone to strip away those words that other people can't understand and to speak to your target market in their language. This Tower of Babel kind of thing that we've got.
Like that's spot on. That's what you often missed is that soundboard. You know, as a solo entrepreneur or even as a startup entrepreneurship, you often miss that ability. So it's about finding a 12-year-old that is adequate to be part of your team ultimately. So yeah, it's really well said. I think it's not about trying to go at it on your own, but surrounding yourself with individuals that have those skills to help you to transform that message from your own thinking.
Yes, and I'm hoping that this exercise will help all of you as well as you drill down through it.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. And a last comment, and then we will move on. Malebo made a very interesting statement in the chat. He's asking himself, why must he put himself in his customer's shoes? And that's to a previous comment made by Paul Isink. So he says, I mean, if you want to have a competitive edge, your product service needs to be unique. Is your problem statement based on customer research, or is it because you can advance an already existing product service? Thus, I think we shouldn't try to make a perfect product service, but a viable one by making sure you can get feedback, continuous iteration to narrow your product service to be as simple as possible for your target market. So there's a few points there. If you wouldn't mind just quickly touching on that, Mike, then we'll move on.
Well, I can tell you, I can sum all of that up in one sentence, and that is, you can have the best product in the world, but if you can't sell it, you've still got it. So you're 100% right. Spending all that time getting the perfect product. You know, another expression I've been using lately particularly within the digital realm, is that good and fast beats great and slow every single day. So coming up with a really good product and getting it out there fast is just so much better than this. Let's go back to the drawing board. No, let's finalize that. Let's make sure that video is perfect. Oh no, I didn't quite enjoy that voiceover. Oh no, can't we change A to an? We don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. Get out to market and then refine more than anything else. So Lebo, thank you so much. Those were great comments. I'm going to move on to seeking. So the next part is understanding what it is and we've covered some of this already just in our little chat, is understanding what our target market really, really wants from their point of view. A description of what the customer is seeking and not of what we're offering. So that's a very, very important thing. The next thing, does the chosen playing field that you've actually chosen to play in, does it highlight you and your brand? Now I use the word brand, I need to understand that each one of us is a brand. Just like my little t-shirt that says Mike Said What, and I've kind of hidden my logo up there above my head. I am trying to create myself as a brand. So please don't think because I'm not Nike or I'm not Coca-Cola, I'm not a brand. You are a brand in everything that you do. So does the field that they're playing in and what they're seeking are you able to offer them something quite remarkable in that space? Then can the consumer identify with this frame of reference? If I say, and I'm going to go quickly back to the life coach, if I say they're seeking transformation and my customers don't understand what I mean by transformation, it doesn't mean the same thing, then we're already on a completely different page on that stage. So can the consumer identify with the frame of reference that you are using when you're using your brand positioning statement? Or are you once again using terminology and TLAs and FLAs and the whole works? Thank you, Guy, for that one. Are they using that instead? And then, is it obvious to the user that this need actually exists? Now, the seeking thing is probably going to be the most challenging because we really do, and it doesn't really matter what we say. We believe we have something to offer, and very often I'm talking to someone and I can see them almost getting, I'm talking about people trying to sell me stuff, and they're almost getting frustrated with me that I just won't get it, that I just don't understand how good they are at it, and I just don't understand why I need their particular product. And I'm sitting there thinking, hey, you know, when I'm like, for example, if I'm buying myself an electronics product, I have a kind of little triangle that I have in front of me. It's what I need, what I want, and what I can afford. And somewhere in the middle of those three is actually what I'm looking for. When someone comes along and they're trying to sell me a product that's kind of way out of my price range, and I mean way out of my price range, there's nothing. Let me just quickly digress for 1 second. Every single time someone makes a buying decision, they're actually asking themselves 4 very simple questions. Number 1, the first question they always ask themselves is, can I afford this? Now, it could be as simple as a box of Smarties on a shelf, and of course you can afford it, even though they're now costing R16.95, and used to, you might like a mumble, but you know you can afford it. But when it comes to, example, a car, it might be, can I afford the deposit? Can I afford the payments? So the first question is always financial. Can I afford this? The second question is operational. You ask yourself whether this product that I'm looking at will fulfill the need that I have. So, for example, will the Smarties give me the sugar rush I'm looking for, or the sweet taste in my mouth? Does the car have the mileage that I want? Will this computer be able to handle my video capacity? Everything is then around an operational question. The third question you ask yourself is an emotional question, and that is, how will I feel when I buy this? Will this deliver some kind of emotional, will I feel good in this car? Will I feel good in this jacket? Will I feel good when I'm drinking this hot chocolate on a morning? And it's funny, but we are asking ourselves these questions. And then the fourth one is what I call the super emotional question. People say, what will my friends and family think when they found that I made this decision? So there might be, for example, a lot of cars out there. You've looked at them, you can afford them, they seem really great. Then you think you go home and you're going to say, I'm going to have to tell my friends at the pub on Friday night that I bought and I won't use any particular car name, and it's going to just embarrass me. And even, for example, a fur coat can fall into that kind of thing, where can I afford it? Yes, I can. I've just got my bonus. Will it do what it wants? Yes, it'll make me look good and it'll keep me warm. How will I feel? Well, I'll feel very comfortable and huge. But what will my friends think? Oh no, they'll think about cruelty to animals and they'll shun me and I'll be a pariah. So think about those 4 questions also when you're talking to your target market. But pretty much put yourself in their mind. What are they looking for? At what price are they prepared to pay? In fact, price isn't even important. Value is more important. Will they see the value in my offer, and can I fulfill that? So if anyone would like to have any comments on the seeking part of the exercise, I'm going to open to the floor again. Thank you, Liezel.
Thank you very much. So anybody who would like that we didn't have yet on the previous activity, anybody who would like to come in and share some thoughts, ask questions, even, you're more than welcome to. I think one of the statements that were made earlier, and one of the things that I found very difficult, Mike, is to understand what my customers are seeking. Because what I have found often is that I like to tell my customers what I think they are seeking. And this is one of the areas where we miss the boat. And we've got a comment in here from Alistair saying, seeking often starts with a customer pain that can be turned into a gain. It also helps you stand in your customer's shoes. Would you like to comment on that, Mike?
Yeah, very much so. It's very much that if I can solve a problem that my customers have, not that I perceive they have, that they know they have, if I can solve that problem for them, they will invite me to sit down. You know, people often ask me, so what do you do, Mike? And I could tell you that I create content and I lecture, whatever, but I have a line that I kind of use. I turn around to them and I say, I help people sell more stuff to more people for more money, more often, more efficiently. And as soon as I'm sitting there, they go, okay, please sit down. Because somewhere in that, they're quickly picking up what it is. They can hear their own problems. Oh, I need to sell stuff. Oh, I need to get a better price. So finding that kind of one-liner, even for yourself, will help you introduce yourself to your customers.
Yes, and being clear on that, and you used the word perceived again, and I like saying, you know, it's not just pain, it's not just problem. A need can be anything. It's not necessarily a negative thing. So we have Niraj making the comment or asking a question. What about the confused customer who does not know what they really are seeking? You can go in circles and create frustration. When I'll be with you now.
So 100%, you are going to come across those customers who have no clue what they want, and call them tire kickers, I'm not really sure. Eventually, you actually reach a point where you realize you need to stop wasting your time on them, because if they don't have an understanding of a need, you're never going to sell them a need to something that they don't want. So what you can do is spend a little bit of time on them, trying you to use their words or help them understand what it is they want. Very often someone will...
Sorry, Mark. I'm just thinking often they actually aren't your target market.
Yes, they're not. They're very often not your target market. And you'll identify with that. But very often you are right. Sometimes they don't know exactly what they need. So, for example, someone will come along to me and say to me, I need a search engine optimization expert. Do you do that? And I go, well, actually, I don't. And I'm not actually sure whether search engine optimization works as well as people believe. What I can do is I can help you rather write content that you post once a week, and Google loves fresh content. And I'm pretty sure if you do that, so there's sometimes there's a disconnect by what they think they need or the outcome that they want to get. They don't understand that what they're looking for will not give them the outcome that they want. So, for example, finding a life coach is not actually going to make me a better person. But doing the exercises that the life coach takes me through and following the process is what's going to make me a better person. It's not the actual finding and paying someone to do something for you.
Okay, thank you. So Gwen, sorry everybody, I can't see raised hands because I'm not the host on Zoom. So just pop me in the chat if you would like to come in. Gwen?
Thank you, yes. Simply an observation that we are assuming a fixed product and differentiating between the target markets, etc. I tend to operate in a sort of pre-phase, if you like. We have a complete change in the backdrop, and the potential market is significant for various entities, various people with products. And what I have found is that I reach a limit in terms of creating the awareness of the change and then move on to champions, if I can call it that. Champions might be in local communities. Over here, I'm talking about traceability. I'm talking about supply chain. COVID has expedited that, but it's application of technology right across the value chain, tying in all the records and all the rest of the stuff. So it's fairly complex. But we're at the point now where there's quite a strong awareness, and the champions are coming through both at local level and also the companies involved. And soon, hopefully, particular people in government, there are a lot of people aware. We haven't yet got all of the champions. But I just wanted to make the point that there's an earlier qualification phase, and this one has taken a long time. We're moving into the sales phase now, and part of what I need to do is position where I can sort of share my expertise in whatever form that is, but also then hand over to others. In a sort of concerted way, if I can call it that. Thanks.
Thank you. Mike?
Gwen, what you're going to have to do is make sure that the message that you're giving across to those champions, as you call them, is the one you want them to be relaying. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to have this real gap emerging between what is, in essence, your brand your brand promise and your brand delivery. Because as small business owners, most of us are responsible for that delivery ourselves. You're bringing in these champions. So all I'm saying is that the work that you do now in helping them identify it, helping them get the message right, is going to pay massive dividends for you later on.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And last comment on this, and we have to move on. Paul, I think.
Thanks, Liezel. I think this is really the difficult part for an entrepreneur as well, because we're all looking for that unarticulated need of the client, because that's the uncontested market space. The paradox is, how the hell do you convince the person that they need that? And that's the art, I think. And I just wanted to make that point, because it's always where I stumble. I love developing great stuff because I can see the need. I just don't know how the hell to get the message across to the market. Maybe I've missed the point. I don't know. But it's you see the need. How do you actually articulate that to the market? really, really difficult point for me.
So, Paul, I agree with you 100%. And I'm going to use Mug and Bean as an example. Who knew that the whole world wanted giant muffins? And who knew the world wanted bottomless coffee? And who knew the world wanted these very large portions? But basically, I'd recommend each one of you get a chance, even if you don't read the whole book or maybe listen to the audio book, is to get hold of a book called Blue Ocean Strategy. And Blue Ocean Strategy explains how you create space that nobody else is fighting in, how to identify that space, how to use your customers' needs on a scale of 1 to 10 and plot them and look for gaps in that. And it is a very technical book, so I would highly recommend the audio book over the textbook or the book. But I think what we're all looking to do is to create that blue ocean space and to find customers' needs that they haven't been able to verbalize, even though they're there, and then fill that gap for them.
Shall we move forward, Mike?
Let's do it. Okay, now we come to the part of our offer. What is it that you're actually offering the customer? Your reason for being. We want something the customers to associate with us, be it a single word, a phrase. Should it be the word generosity, understanding? What is our reason for being? What is it that we want to put across there? Do you deliver the benefits better than your competitor? That's another thing I ask all the time. I'm very often working in the restaurant industry. I've got a guy coming up to me, saying to me, I'm really not sure why my restaurant's not doing very well, because, you know, the food's not bad and the service is pretty good. And I'm thinking, well, for not bad food and average service, I can stay home. You'd need to be a lot better. You'd have to have, here's where you show people why you're better than your competition, more than anything else. What do you offer over and above them? Does the offer have special interest to your consumer? Is there some part, some message that you can tweak when you're talking to your customers in your I offer? Something that they can say, literally, when they hear the I offer part, they should think to themselves, oh my goodness, where has this person been all my life? That's kind of what we want to spark when they get to the I offer part. That part where they say to them, finally, somebody who gets me. Finally, somebody who understands me. It's that ability to put that across. And then, very, very important, can you actually really deliver on this? Are you making promises that you can keep? Now, as a marketer, to me, I can tell you right now, a lot of the world out there is about smoke and mirrors. If you come to me and say to me, I would like you to make sure people think I'm the best life coach in the world, I can kind of do that. I can put everything together for that. But the ability to deliver on that is then in your hands. So you need to have this clear understanding of what you offer in terms of what your customer needs. Does it fit in with your values? Because it's no use offering something to the world that goes completely against your own values as a human being, as a business. That'll never be sustainable. And very importantly, can I deliver on this promise that I am making right now? So that kind of is how we come up with our offer. We try and keep it short and sweet. We don't need to go into great details of how we do what we offer. And I can tell you now that whenever I get to our offer, if I'm working with people, consumers love the words system and process. If they understand that there's a system, if you say to things like, I offer a 5-step process, I have a system that involves 9 steps. As soon as they understand the number of steps are involved, what's involved, it gives them a much clearer understanding in their mind of what they're in for. They don't think they're in for something that's open-ended. I'm never really going to reach a solution. So this is a very, very important part, is to put your offer across against what it is they're seeking to a target market and that they can understand it.
Excellent. Mike, would you like people to comment on this I offer?
With pleasure.
We have quite some active chats happening. We'll come back to some of the statements and questions later on after we've completed. Any comments on I offer? Any questions on I offer? The reason for being? What is it that you offer your target customer? Sorry, just a reminder, I can't see raised hands or anything like that. Yes, Jean-Pierre?
Sorry, I just want to add there, with my experience and with the research and stuff that I've done, is I think this offer part becomes such an intricate thing because there's so many things that you need to take into consideration. It is your MTP, your reason for being a why. It's also what you can actually deliver and not just promise. And then it has to be shaped in line with your various customer segments, with their pains and their gains, with the jobs that they do. So this offer part becomes quite an art, and I think it becomes quite a challenge to actually shape this in a very digestible yet broad and encompassing way, if that's the right word.
Spot on, Jean-Pierre, spot on. And the other thing, the one thing you left out is please ensure that you can make money doing this. Or if financial reward is not the currency, there is some currency that you're trading in. If that currency is helping other people, make sure that's what you're doing. So please, when I use the word profit, that profit might not be financial profit, it might be some other currency. But please ensure that what you're offering is you can make money doing it. I have met many clients who have absolutely no idea how they make money and how much things cost them and what their cost of sale is. And I try and explain to them that, great, I'll get you 200 new clients, and all that's going to do is help you go bankrupt quicker. Please, you've got to make sure that what you're offering has the outcome that you would like as well.
And I think there's a reason, obviously, why. Sorry. Please proceed.
No, go, continue.
No, I just wanted to say, I think that's exactly why the value proposition block in the business model canvas is in the center, because on the left hand you've got the operations or the back end with the associated costs, etc. On the front end you've got the customer and then the money aspect. So what you offer needs to be sustainable in terms of producing and maintaining and delivering it, and both sides has got a cost implication, and that thing obviously needs to, with a lot of design and thinking, needs to be in the red. So that you don't offer something that's going to drive you back.
Thank you. Thanks, Jean-Pierre. Kirsty, is it you?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that also sometimes what you offer, so I'll give you an example. Yesterday I was explaining to someone something that I'm going to start offering, and she said to me, you know, that sounds amazing, but it wouldn't really work for me. And I said to her, well, why do you think that is? And so she explained it to me, and I found that actually sometimes when you talk to people more and listen to them more, you can actually sometimes offer something that you didn't think you could, if that makes sense. So you have a business plan, you have an idea, you have sort of an idea of what you want, and then you talk to someone and say, you know, that doesn't really fit for me, and you say, oh, but actually I can do this, this, and this as well, and add it on, and I can offer it in terms of services as well. So I find that talking to people, often people don't want to talk to people because they're scared the person's going to steal their ideas, or, you know, they're going to have an opinion that doesn't fit with that person's view of their, you know, because often these projects are very close to our hearts and things. So people can't be, you know, objective when it comes to other people's opinions, but that is how you actually end up finding that niche. And what do people actually want is by talking to them and seeing, oh, you know what, I actually have this skill that I didn't know was actually going to be required in this sort of industry.
Kirsty, in a nutshell, a lot of my customers tell me that I'm an insultant and not a consultant. My job is not to give them the good news all the time, but to kind of try and help pick holes in it. But nobody can do it better than a potential customer. And if you're prepared to listen to that person, and then maybe all you need to do is reframe your offer. You don't even have to change your offer. Just reframe it in light of what they've said. You've had a successful day.
Right. Thank you very much for that. Mike, shall we move on to the next point?
And then we come to the reason to believe. And this is kind of in the background. When you're telling me what you offer, why should I believe you? And what I want you to do here, and the most important word here is preemptive. I want you to try and preempt questions that your customers would ask. Whoa, so why should I believe you? Why should I believe that you're the best? Why should I believe that you'll be able to maintain this price? Ask yourself those kind of questions. Try and preempt the customer's questions. I use questions a lot in my video production. When I'm doing video production, I find that if I can start off by asking 3 very important questions, questions that leave the viewer saying to you, oh, wow, they get me. Oh, I'm talking to somebody who understands my business. I then have them for the rest of the video. And I'll give you an example of that a bit later on when I show you one of the videos. So the next thing is, does it define what you stand for in a clear and compelling way? Is the reason to believe, does it cover who you are? And then does it reflect insight into the consumer? And all of this goes back all the time to us understanding our customer. And I'm sure that every single person sitting here is a business owner in some form and also a customer in other businesses. And think to yourself how many times you've stood there in front of a salesperson, in front of a cashier, and thought to yourself, they just don't understand me. They just don't understand that I'm the customer. They just don't understand that this is about me. So that's why I know as hard as that, this is all about putting yourself in their mind. So these questions, this reason to believe, does it reflect insight? Or am I, if I'm going to list off Mike say BSc, LLB, etc., and I mean nothing to the customer, I've lost them. But if I say to them, I have the experience that's required, and I give them an example of it, I've covered the reason to believe. And then once you've done all of this, you also need to understand, do all your elements support each other? Can I go back and look at each one of them and see the thread running through each one of them? Because that's when you come up with this incredible brand positioning statement that all of a sudden, and I know it sounds weird, it can change your life for you. It can change your business for you. It can help you focus. And it can help you get a much clearer understanding of your own offering. You might go back and rewrite a course, or as Kirsty said, offer something that she didn't even think of offering, that she's very capable of offering, that she only picked up through insight of her customer. Without it, she would have just gone hammering, trying to sell the same thing to the same people. And there was a need sitting there waiting for her to exploit. So in a nutshell, this is the brand positioning statement. In front of you, by the time you finish later on today, I'm sure many of you will be doing this exercise tonight. Write it out. Just write out. My first step I always do is, and I then go back and I look at all I've written, and I've seen where I can find duplicates. And you will find many. You'll find yourself describing the same customer, but in different ways. So I kind of cross them out. Then I'm looking for keywords. I look for words like passion, understanding, need, and I highlight those words for myself. And then eventually, and I know it sounds weird, eventually you do come up with that one sentence that kind of works for you.